proposal from Councilmember Beatty aims to make it easier for homeowners to add backyard housing units. Today on City Chat, Councilmember Otto Beatty is here with us to explain what this new proposal could mean for Columbus residents. Hello, Councilmember. Thank you for joining us on City Chat today.
Thank you for having me, Josie.
So, as the newest council member, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background career-wise, and if you want to go personal, you can.
Okay, yes. I have lived in this, I was born and raised in the city of Columbus, so over a 50-year resident, and then my family's been here since 1937. And then me individually have had careers in law and entrepreneurship and also real estate development.
What inspired you to take on this issue and to push for, to make it easier to approve ADUs right now? And what does ADU stand for?
Okay, so let me just talk first about, my own personal story and also understanding the trends of, the community and different things. So, my own mother, as she was aging, she got to a point where she could not necessarily live alone in her own condominium. And so my sister and I came up with the idea to convert my sister's garage at her home into a independent living unit, okay, which connects to my sister's house, but has an independent door. It has a kitchen, a bedroom, bathroom, and living area for my mother to be able to age in place close to family, okay? And then also, just through my work, I've been involved in a lot of different types of housing and innovative housing, and I've been seeing a lot of things that are going on around the country. And there's been an emergence of legislation promoting or making it easier for people to build these accessory dwelling units. An accessory dwelling unit can take many forms, but what the first thing is certainly it's a dwelling unit. So it can be it's independent, it has its own kitchen, bathroom, place for living, either sleeping or living room, depending on the size, okay? And those living units can be either an independent, small, tiny house in your backyard. It can be above a garage, okay, like a carriage house, and above an attic in the main house, or you can do what my sister and I did, convert a garage into a living unit. So there's all kinds of forms, even in the basement. But what this does is this gives families and homeowners the opportunity to expand their living space or situate their living space that another family member can come into and live, or they can use it for rental for additional income and wealth building for the home.
Yeah, that's so, it's so cool that you are bringing this topic and trying to get this passed, because like all of the reasons of doing it, I mean, it's kind of a win-win for everybody, and especially at home if you are looking, after your parents too. Like, I really appreciate that. Can you tell us what ADU stands for? I was trying to.
Accessory. Okay, meaning that it is.
Accessory,
meaning that is secondary to the main home or apartment building. Okay, it's not necessarily part of it, it's separate. Okay, it's not independent, it's in relation to. And then dwelling, so that refers to that someone could live there independently. They have their own door to go in and out. They have a kitchen, they have a bathroom, they have a living space, irrespective of the particular size.
Could you rent it out to somebody? Would it?
Yes, you could. And see, one of the things that residents should understand, we already have these. Okay, we have them, and you find them mostly in some of the older neighborhoods. German Village, Italian Village. You'll see them particularly in the format of a carriage house above the garage, near East Side. So they're already in existence, and people use them for a wide variety of purposes. It could be a home office, could be a rental, could be a lot of other things. Okay, and so what we're doing, but even though those exist, it is not recognized in the zoning code as a housing type. Okay, so what we're doing is a couple different things. Is first of all, we are recognizing accessory dwelling units as a housing type. This is what it means, just like the question you asked me. So someone can look in the code, this is what this means. And then what we are doing, we are also then putting guidelines around the size of them, how large they can be, where they have to be placed in the garage, in the yard, the height, of them. And then of course they must comply with all the permitting and building codes.
Yeah.
So there'll be rules around it.
You mentioned a little bit about how the current process right now, so can you tell us about why you saw there was like an issue around this?
The current process, again, I mentioned that they're not recognized
Yeah.
in the zoning code, okay? Now, the majority of parcels in Columbus are single family parcels.
Okay.
And the core of that is that you have one parcel, you can have one dwelling unit, okay?
Okay.
So if you wanted to do an ADU, no matter how small it was or anything like that, that would be considered a second dwelling unit, and therefore it is prohibited, okay? When something is prohibited in the use portion of the zoning code, okay, it is then required for you to go through a process to get what is called a variance,
Okay.
a variance. And so that is a different process that involves, going to an area commission, sometimes to a development commission or building and zoning services, to do extra steps in order to ask for permission for this, to do this extra thing.
Okay.
And what happens is that in this particular instance, there's all parts of the code that also have rules. Like for instance, one of the more common variances that you would have to get in order to do an ADU, remember I talked about the backyard?
Yeah.
Is there's a section of the code that talks about fronting. And so fronting means that the front door of any dwelling unit has to face the public street, okay? So if you had something in the back or above the garage, it's not visible from the public street.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's all kinds of other rules as well. And so what this does is this basically, as long as you fit in these guidelines that we have for the number of ADUs that you can have in a backyard, the size, the height, and where it is located, okay, you're able to skip having to go through this variance process, and you can move forward with getting it permitted and getting it approved by the building department to move forward constructing it.
Some neighbors might worry about how these backyard homes affect their neighborhood. How do you see ADUs fitting in and keeping, the community still feeling like everything is looking good?
Okay. All right, so, we have heard these concerns, and one of the good things about, working on this particular legislation is there's the legislation in other states and other cities. So we've been able to see what the outcomes are, going forward. Because some of the Seattle, for instance, has had ADU legislation since 2005. So almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And other cities, in subsequent years, beyond that. So we know what some of the concerns or what the outcomes are. So first of all, there's been reports that over 60% of individuals that build an ADU are utilizing it for their own use or for the use of a family member.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is, so if you talk about there's two major concerns here. So first of all, it's just the look and feel of the neighborhood. Again, our size, we're only allowing, in most neighborhoods, we're only allowed one additional unit.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, the size that we're talking about. Again, it must be, getting into the details of this, 65%, it can't be larger than the main home, okay?
Yeah.
So you're not gonna have this towering monstrosity behind the main home. It's gonna be smaller. If you would think about this, in most instances, if it's within our guidelines, and in other individuals, neighbors, whoever would walk or ride down the street, they wouldn't know that the ADU was in the back.
Yeah.
They would not see it past
Right,
the first
yeah.
house. Now, if they're walking down the alley and they see that it's there above the garage or whatever, then that's what they're seeing. So,
Yeah. That's a great answer. Thank you. How do ADUs help with the city's housing shortage? And do you think that it could really make a difference with like renters and just families in general?
yes, first of all, this is very consistent with the administration's overall housing goals. One, increasing the supply, of course.
Yeah.
All right. Giving families and homeowners different housing options, okay? And I say housing options because, just like my own situation, Okay, our option was, okay, should she go to assisted living? Should she go to a nursing home? Should we have somebody come into our current home? This was an option that we could weigh against those different things.
Yeah.
Okay, and then even if someone were to do an ADU, grandma might live in there for 5 years and then it becomes a rental, or grandma might live in there for 5 years, she passes away, and then a son or a daughter who's having trouble getting that first home or that first opportunity when they get out of school, they could live there. And we had individuals come into our hearings who testified to those points, shared their stories on these type of things.
Yeah.
We had someone come in and testify, that when their parents had an ADU in a community a little further away from here, and when father was struck with cancer, they were able to go and stay at that ADU, take shifts and other things. Brothers and sisters were able to utilize that as an extra space in the house in order to care for him.
That's
So
cool.
many stories, because it's an independent. And so, the same thing when you move an older person in, that they want their own space, okay?
Yeah.
They want their own space, or even a younger person, and these provide an independent opportunity to do that.
You have talked with other Ohio cities that have done this. What have you learned from their experiences and bringing that back to Columbus that you really admire?
Pretty complex question here, but I will say that first of all, we looked at cities across the country, and particularly into peer city, and there's a lot of different issues. You want neighborhoods and citizens to feel comfortable with this, but you also don't want to be overly restricted where you potentially cut down on the volume. Like for instance, Cincinnati, their standards are a lot. They had a standard that that an owner occupier had to be in either the AU or the main house. They had some other restrictions as well as far as size and other things. And so then in their first year, they had less than 10 permits. Okay. Recently, the city of Bexley, for instance, passed ADU legislation. Okay, I believe on September 9th. Again, talking to their community members and everything like that, they wanted, first of all, they decided that they're only going to permit up to 25 a year, okay? And then they created a registry, and the person has to certify the use every year and all kinds of things or whatever. But that's what was best for their community in order to, to get the legislation across, or what their community felt. We've had a outpouring of support from everything from nonprofits to community groups to builder groups, and then particularly, AARP, advancing, advocating for ADUs to be easier to be built in Columbus.
Councilmember, this is your last year here on council.
First and last.
First and last. Can you tell us how you felt about being on council this past year and what you're going to do after?
Well, again, I was very honored to be appointed to City Council. Obviously, my family has a long history of public service in this town. In my family, we've had elected official or public servant since 1979 consecutively. So, it's part of a family tradition. But, when it's you, it can be different.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed working on the different policies like the ADU policy. And I feel very, very good getting to know the other council members, and I do believe that Columbus is in good hands with the leadership that we have in the city.
Well, I've got to say, you made a huge difference, in just 1 year. So thank you so much. We love your brain.
Thank you.
I'm Josie Smith. Thanks for watching City Chat on CTV.